Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Ladies and gentlemen, when politicians fail at their job, only one class of people suffer, and that is us, the common folk. When politicians fail at their jobs, what happens? Wars happen. And ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you what? Has the common folk here in these United States of America been suffering, I would say, for at least the last 15 to 20 years? And what do I mean by that? Getting poorer, losing their jobs to overseas, corporations, going to war, sending their children to war so that they can die for what is the military-industrial complex. And for those of you that don't know what the military-industrial complex is, stay till the end of this video, because I'm going to show you exactly who they are. And you're going to be amazed. And you're also going to wake up to the fact that in order for the military-industrial complex to stay in business, we have to go to war. This country has been at war for about 90% of its existence. Maybe not wars declared by Congress, but one conflict or another. And when is enough enough, ladies and gentlemen? When are we going to take care of our own? When are we going to take care of our countrymen? Our country is in shambles. It's in shambles. It's becoming a two-tier society where you have the haves and the have-nots. And it seems that every single crisis that we see, it is those that are the haves that get richer and wealthier. And those that are the working people, the people that actually built this country, the people that actually go out there and labor for their living, we are the ones, ladies and gentlemen, that get stuck holding the bag. So someone sent me this article, so thank you very much. I haven't read it yet. I just opened it. I thought that we would go through it together. 10 signs that indicate that we are headed to war, ladies and gentlemen. And I keep praying that we don't, because we don't need to. I keep praying that people wake up and say no. But the fact of the matter is that there's too many people that are still asleep. People will cheer for us to go to war. People that consume the mainstream media will want this country to send its young to war. While we here are getting poorer and more desperate just to make a living, just to put food on the table, just to keep the house heated, just to try to keep up with this ridiculous inflation that's going on. And our politicians have nothing better to do than to go 4,000 or 5,000 miles away and say, hey, listen, I'm going to send my boys over here to kick your ass because you're not doing what I want you to do. You know what? I could care less what the hell Russia is doing with Ukraine. I could care less. If it's that big of a deal, let the countries right around there take care of it. I'm upset, ladies and gentlemen, because these young kids, they don't know what the hell war is. They think it's what they see on TV. The television, the computer, whatever it is, Netflix, it romanticizes war to make it look like you're the one that's going to make it back. Every time that you see one of these war movies, let's say Saving Private Ryan, when someone watches that movie, someone that's young, that doesn't have life experience, when they watch that movie, they are always Private Ryan because he's the one that makes it back alive. They never put themselves in the place of those men that were getting shot as they exited those watercrafts and were getting shot on the beach. They never put themselves in that place. They always put themselves in the place of the hero, of the person that made it. And here, once again, what does the government do when it runs out of options? What does the government do when it needs to put a smokescreen in front of the American people's face so that they can get away with the crimes that they've committed against their own people, they take us to war, ladies and gentlemen. They take us to war, or they find that next huge crisis. They'll take us to war. You know, the stock market will get pummeled. They are doing the best that they can to keep this stock market up, ladies and gentlemen. I am convinced of that. These people are not dip buyers. There's no one buying the dip. The only people that I think would be buying the dip are those people that are controlling the trading desks over at the Federal Reserve or at the large banks. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what we can do about this because, like I said, too many people are asleep, and more of our young men and women are going to get sent overseas so that they can kill someone they've never met, just because the government told them to do it. It's freaking disgusting. And look at this beautiful, picture, ladies and gentlemen. Look at this nice picture right here. These young kids see that. They only see the soldiers that are running, that are on their feet. They don't see the soldiers that are missing their legs. They don't see the soldiers that are crying for their mothers, because they know they're going to die. They don't see that. Michael Snyder says, are we about to stumble into a war that nobody wants? Well, some people definitely want this war, ladies and gentlemen. I truly pray to God that we don't end up in another war or conflict, whatever you want to call it. Because some people definitely want this war. And what really scares me is that we are in the war cycle. We are in the 100-year war cycle. We are right in it. He goes on to say, I will explain below. It would be so easy to avoid a military conflict with Russia, but the people running our foreign policy have ruled out any easy solutions. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you what. Russia ain't no JAV team. Okay, Russia's not a JAV team. Have you seen some of their training videos, how they train their soldiers? It ain't no joke. Instead, they seem absolutely determined to have some sort of a macho showdown with Russia, and that is extremely dangerous. Sorry about that. I had a big old jet going right over our heads here. Sadly, these days, most Americans can't even identify our current Secretary of State, and the name Jake Sullivan means absolutely nothing to the vast majority of the population. But these are the guys that are telling the senile old guy in the office what to do about Russia. What the Russians want is not complicated. They don't want Western missiles in Ukraine, and they don't want Ukraine to join NATO. Those two requests are not unreasonable. Just imagine how we would feel if Canada joined a military alliance with Russia and all of a sudden there were Russian missiles stationed all along the US-Canadian border. We wouldn't like that very much, would we? Well, that's how the Russians feel about the situation in Ukraine. The Russians have put their requests into 2 draft treaties, but those 2 draft treaties have been firmly rejected by this administration. If Blinken, Sullivan, and the rest of Joe Biden's national security team were actually competent, this crisis would be over by now. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me go ahead and throw this in there. Don't make this about politics. All right? Don't make this about one side or the other. You know why? Because when our boys and girls die overseas, they're not thinking about one side or the other. Trust me, they're not thinking about that. The following are 10 signs that indicate that the US, the UK, Israel, and NATO all believe that we are on the precipice of a war with Russia. Number 1, the US State Department has issued a formal travel advisory warning that Americans should stay out of Ukraine. Number 2, the US and the UK are both reducing embassy staffing levels in Kiev. Number 3, family members of US embassy personnel in Kiev are being evacuated. Number 4, Israel is planning a mass evacuation of Jewish people from Ukraine. Number 5. CNN is reporting that as many as 8,500 U.S. troops have been put on heightened alert for a possible deployment to Eastern Europe. Number 6. The New York Times is reporting that the Biden administration is also considering sending warships and aircraft into the region. Number 7. Other Western European nations are also preparing to send forces to Eastern Europe. Denmark is sending a frigate and deploying F-16 warplanes to Lithuania. Spain will send warships and could send fighter jets to Bulgaria. And France stands ready to send troops to Romania. You know, as I'm reading this, I just have this picture in my head of all of these politicians and all of these people that are high up, you know, that are in charge of getting us into wars. I have this picture of them in a back room sipping on some whiskey, smoking cigars and laughing about it because they know how rich they're going to become from sending us to war. Number 8. A British news source is reporting that hundreds of military trains packed with Russian troops have been moving into Belarus. Number 9. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is alleging that the Russians are planning a lightning war that could take out Kiev. Number 10. The UK's Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office has announced that they have obtained information suggesting that the Russian government is plotting to install a pro-Kremlin leader in Kiev. And ladies and gentlemen, were there any weapons of mass destruction? Were there any weapons of mass destruction, ladies and gentlemen? How many people died in Iraq? How many people died in Afghanistan? How many people died in Afghanistan after Osama bin Laden was, killed? How many people died after? Wasn't that what we were supposed to be doing in Afghanistan? Was looking for Osama bin Laden and eliminating him? But once we did that, we stayed there. Why? Why, ladies and gentlemen? Have you ever asked yourself that question? Why has no one gone to jail for taking us to Iraq on a lie? Why has no one gone to jail for taking us to Vietnam on a lie? Despite all of the hysteria, I personally do not believe that war will erupt immediately, and I hope not. But without a doubt, the stage is definitely being set for the sort of military conflict with Russia that I have been warning about for years, says Mr. Snyder. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I could be 100% off here. I mean, I really don't want for our country to go to war, because I know all of the pain that it will cause, not only to the service members that actually go there, but to the families of the service members and to everyone else in this country. Listen, service members go to war so that they can do what? Protect our rights. If you still believe that, you need to really, really consider taking your head out of the sand. Because every single time that I've ever deployed, I've come back to a country where I have less rights. I've never said this before, but my last 2 deployments, ladies and gentlemen, my last 2 deployments, on my way back in the airport, in uniform, I got pulled aside by one of the alphabet agencies to question me because they thought I was a suspect in something. How humiliating is that? To be coming back from a forward deployed status, to be coming back from a foreign country that is supposedly an enemy of your country, and having had served your country in that foreign country, and on your way back, you don't get cheers, but you get an FBI agent pulling you aside, asking you questions for half an hour, and your command staff thinking that you're a criminal. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you this. I hope that you show this to any young person out there. The military does not care about you. This government does not care about you. And if I don't sound like a patriot, maybe that's because you've got it wrong. A patriot's main duty is to be critical of their government so that they don't do stuff like this. Send us to war, crash our economy, inflate the money supply until everyone is poor. But at least everyone will be equal, because equity does matter. Let's all be poor together, ladies and gentlemen. Wouldn't it be nice if wars were like they used to be hundreds of years ago? Have you ever seen those movies where like a king and his knights and his men go to war and the king is on the horse doing the fighting with them? How many of these pieces of crap up in Washington that decide whether we go to war or not, how many of them are going to be in the front lines? How many of them are going to be taking a crap in a freaking bush in a third world country, wondering if around the corner some enemy is going to come and slit their throat? None of them, ladies and gentlemen. Not one of them. But they'll send us there. They'll definitely send us there. Right? They'll definitely send us there. They'll send us there to die. And then when we come back, they'll put a flag over your coffin. But really, what does it matter at that point? Let me show you, ladies and gentlemen, who it is that gets rich when we go to war. These are the companies of the military-industrial complex. And I just want you to see how many there are. This is not something small. This beast right here needs to be fed. And it will be fed with the lives of our boys and girls. And it will be fed with our labor as we lose the value of our currency due to the inflationary forces that this government will put forth in order to send us to war. And in addition to that, to top it off, we'll get to lose even more liberties, because they'll come up with something. There's always got to be a boogeyman. There always has to be a boogeyman, ladies and gentlemen. Look at this. Look at this. It's so many of them, they have them alphabetized. I'm going to keep going down until I'm all the way down to the bottom. These are the people that are getting rich. These are the companies that are getting rich. These are the people that lobby our politicians, and then they line their pockets with riches so that our boys and girls can go to war. This is who our kids are dying for, ladies and gentlemen. This is who they are dying for. Had enough of this crap.